The night had a strange weight to it, the kind that settled over the neighborhood like an omen no one dared to name. Streetlights flickered along the quiet cul-de-sac, their pulses uneven, as if warning of something inching closer. A cold wind drifted against the windows of the house, carrying with it the unsettling hum of an engine that had been idling far longer than any vehicle should at that hour. Hidden beyond the line of hedges, a pair of silhouettes moved with a stiffness that didn't belong to normal patrol routes. Their boots crushed fallen leaves in patterns too synchronized for coincidence, yet too theatrical for real authority. Inside, the air felt different, thicker, almost listening. The soft glow of a desk lamp cast long shadows across the floor, stretching like dark fingers toward the front door. Every now and then, the wooden frame let out a small groan from the pressure outside, the kind that made the house seem aware, alert, and strangely uneasy. The atmosphere carried the sharp electricity of being watched, the quiet realization that someone, or something, was waiting just beyond the threshold, rehearsing a story they hoped would be believed. The knock came with the precision of a threat, not a greeting. 3 heavy strikes, slow, deliberate, demanding. Each one vibrated through the walls, stirring a low hum in the air, like an old shortwave radio caught between forbidden frequencies. The night fell still in response, as if the entire street held its breath. A motion sensor light snapped on, flooding the porch in a stark white glow, revealing shapes that were uniformed but not official, confident but not genuine. They stood too close to the door, too eager, shoulders squared in practiced intimidation. A strange dread coiled through the house. Something about their stance felt manufactured, their posture too eager to impose rather than protect. They carried the aura of people who expected immediate obedience, people who relied on fear, not law. In the distance, a dog barked once and then abruptly stopped, as though silenced by the tension pressing down on the neighborhood. The air inside shifted again when movement stirred from deeper within the house. Calm, steady footsteps approached, unhurried yet purposeful. The presence moving toward the door carried a weight of its own, quiet authority, steady confidence, and a history that could not be intimidated by false badges or counterfeit bravado. A faint metallic sound echoed as something small and powerful was lifted from a place of safekeeping, a reminder that real authority wore no mask and needed no theatrics. Beyond the door, the imposters adjusted themselves, unaware that their entire act was seconds away from collapsing. They had come expecting fear, confusion, and compliance, a routine they had likely practiced on others. What they were about to face instead was the kind of truth that stripped away lies in an instant, the kind that made even the most brazen pretenders run without looking back. The house exhaled as footsteps reached the entrance, as if relieved that the moment of deception was about to meet its reckoning. On the porch, the fake officers straightened, preparing for their performance. Inside, the person approaching the door reached for the handle with the ease of someone who had confronted far darker things than late-night knockers sent by a bitter neighborhood board. And in the next heartbeat, the night would split open, because the only thing more dangerous than pretending to have power is discovering you're standing in front of someone who actually does. Hit subscribe, watch till the end. Morning didn't bring comfort, only clarity. The neighborhood looked deceptively peaceful in daylight, a row of carefully identical homes positioned like obedient soldiers along manicured lawns. Yet beneath the curated symmetry was a quiet rot, a kind of social decay that hid behind overly friendly smiles and watchful eyes that lingered too long on the color of someone's skin. Even before the night of the knock, there had always been signals, small, persistent signs that the homeowners association operated less like a community board and more like an unsupervised kingdom with its own unwritten rules. The protagonist had moved into the neighborhood hoping for quiet, not confrontation. The ranch-style home at the corner lot offered space, privacy, and a place to breathe after years built on discipline, service, and sacrifice. The wide front porch overlooked a lake that shimmered in the early hours, often still, often serene. Yet even that view felt tainted by the constant glances from neighbors who seemed to question why someone like him could afford something so beautiful. Their whispers came disguised as innocent inquiries, their curiosity cloaked in politeness, but the message beneath it was unmistakable. Over time, the HOA's presence became an invisible pressure. Letters arrived for non-existent violations. Notices appeared for issues that didn't exist. Each envelope carried the tone of authority, but beneath the printed words lay the same unspoken message the neighborhood had been signaling since the first day he arrived. He didn't belong. The pressure grew not from rules being broken, but from the assumption that rules should be broken by someone like him. The allegations were small at first: trash cans slightly misplaced, grass measured with obsessive scrutiny, a fabricated report of noise that never occurred. Yet despite all of this, the house remained a refuge. Inside lived a calm strength, embodied by the woman who shared it with him. Her presence was a quiet reminder that real power didn't need to shout, threaten, or draw attention. She carried a history deeper than any title the HOA claimed to wield, a history forged in service, in justice, in understanding the difference between real authority and those who merely pretended to own it. Still, the night of the knock didn't come from nowhere. It was the inevitable escalation of a group that believed their unchecked control made them untouchable. They had tested boundaries again and again, and now they were stepping into territory far beyond their understanding. The setup had already been written, the players were already in motion. All that remained was for the truth to confront the lie with the kind of force that left no room for doubt. The days following the strange midnight intrusion carried an uneasy shift, as if the neighborhood itself had begun holding its breath. The HOA board members no longer pretended to be subtle. Their cars crawled past the house more slowly. Their eyes lingered longer. Their presence thickened the air, shaping it into something watchful and territorial. It wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about exerting dominance, about forcing compliance through intimidation disguised as community order. Small disruptions began to multiply. The mailbox started filling with anonymous complaints written in the same stiff handwriting. An unmarked SUV appeared at the corner for hours at a time, occupants barely visible behind tinted glass. The lake access gate, once always open for residents, began locking itself selectively, coincidentally, always when he approached. The pattern wasn't accidental. It was calculated, a strategy built on the belief that pressure eventually cracks even the strongest foundations. But the house remained steady. The woman inside it moved with quiet vigilance, her instincts finely tuned long before this neighborhood ever learned her name. She noticed the small details, the freshly moved footprints near the side window, the faint click of a camera shutter hidden somewhere in the hedges, the distinct sound of a vehicle following at a precise distance on her morning commute. These weren't the actions of frustrated neighbors, they were the behaviors of people emboldened by the illusion of power, people who believed they controlled the environment so completely that consequences no longer felt real. The HOA's next tactic escalated the situation from petty harassment into something darker. A fake citation appeared taped to the door, stamped with an insignia attempting to mimic official law enforcement. It claimed violations that didn't exist, referencing statutes that were vague enough to sound legitimate. But the mistakes were glaring to trained eyes. The wrong format, the wrong font, the wrong tone. Whoever created it assumed fear would override logic. They assumed the household would panic, comply, or retreat. Instead, the false authority only sharpened the tension. The couple understood that people willing to impersonate law enforcers rarely stopped at paperwork. Their confidence came from the belief that the neighborhood was on their side, that no one would question them, and that fear would silence the truth long before anyone noticed the lies. The storm wasn't just approaching, it had already begun forming. The questions now weren't about if the HOA would escalate, but how far they were willing to go when they believed their control was absolute. The rising action had reached the point where deception was no longer a tactic, it had become a weapon. Night fell with a suffocating weight, shadows stretching longer than reason allowed. The street, usually quiet, now thrummed with a tension that made the hair on the back of the neck rise. From the corner of the porch, the imposters appeared again, silhouettes rigid, their confidence bordering on arrogance. They had rehearsed this moment countless times in their minds, convinced that a display of fake authority could bend reality to their favor. But reality has a way of revealing itself, and tonight it would strike with precision. The knock was the same, measured, deliberate. 3 strikes, each resonating through the house as if the walls themselves were warning them to step back. Inside, the couple moved with a quiet certainty. There was no fear, only preparation. The metallic click of a badge being drawn echoed softly, a sound that carried the weight of undeniable truth. The woman stepped forward, each movement calm but decisive, exuding authority that no counterfeit could match. Outside, the men froze. Their postures betrayed hesitation for the first time. The air was charged with the contrast of pretense and reality, false badges versus real power. One of them reached instinctively for a belt or pocket, the universal gesture of intimidation. But instinct falters when confronted with unyielding legitimacy. The U.S. Marshal badge glinted under the porch light, catching the eyes of every pretender like a warning flare. The shift was instantaneous. The aura of command radiating from the house shattered the illusions of control that had emboldened the HOA. Every practiced move, every rehearsed threat, evaporated in the presence of genuine authority. The men stumbled backward, uncertainty carving its way into their expressions. Their steps became hurried, uncoordinated, desperate. The night swallowed their attempts at dominance. The lake shimmered silently nearby, reflecting the stark contrast between deception and truth, between fear manufactured and fear realized. The impostors retreated, their confidence shattered in the wake of unassailable legitimacy. The house, once a target of intimidation, now stood unbroken, a fortress of quiet strength and undeniable presence. In that instant, the neighborhood witnessed an unspoken declaration. Power worn as a mask may intimidate, but power earned through truth commands reverence. The tension that had built over weeks, the harassment and subtle racial hostility, crumbled in a heartbeat. The climax wasn't just the retreat of the false officers, it was the moment the house, its occupants, and their unshakable integrity became an unassailable force. The darkness outside no longer whispered threats, it recoiled. The night's echoes faded, leaving a silence heavier than any confrontation. The street returned to its superficial calm, but something fundamental had shifted. The false authority that had terrorized the neighborhood now seemed fragile, its power revealed as nothing more than a shadow. The house, unshaken, became a silent monument to resilience, a reminder that integrity and truth outweigh intimidation and pretense. The HOA's whispers lost their edge. Their letters, their notices, their covert surveillance, all paled in the face of demonstrated legitimacy. The lessons of the past weeks crystallized. Fear may bend the willing, but it cannot fracture those grounded in conviction. The woman's badge was more than metal. It was a symbol of justice quietly but irrevocably asserting itself. Beyond the immediate victory, the moment carried a broader truth. Racism, false authority, and systemic intimidation may attempt to dominate, yet authentic power, rooted in courage, expertise, and righteousness, cannot be replicated or faked. The neighborhood would never forget the night the illusion crumbled, when pretense met reality and ran. In the end, the house remained a fortress, the couple a testament, and the question lingered for all who watched: how many false authorities in the world tremble when confronted with real justice?